I'm Jack Harlan, former sniper in Afghanistan, now living on 40 acres in Willow Creek, Arizona, chasing some peace after years of war. I lost a close comrade in a dust-choked mission, and that memory drove me to find a place where no one meddles in my business. I bought this land because it's remote, no neighbors within shouting distance, and sure as hell no one to tell me to lower my flagpole or paint my fence. But then Marissa Tate, self-proclaimed queen of the Willow Heights Homeowners Association, showed up and everything shifted fast as a rifle bolt clicking into place. The morning started like any other. I woke early, brewed jet black coffee strong enough to strip paint, and took Shadow, my Malinois trained like a special forces operative, to check the perimeter. Shadow's not just a companion, he reads my hand signals better than most humans, ears perked at every odd sound. The Arizona sun was scorching the ground by 8 a.m., the sky a cloudless blue. I tended to the horses, filled their water, then headed to my workshop where I spend most of my time. From the outside it looks like a weathered barn, wood faded, tin roof rusted, nothing anyone would glance at twice. But inside it's a security fortress, built like a CIA safehouse, with reinforced concrete walls, infrared cameras and motion sensors at every angle. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I poured sweat and money into this workshop. Steel door with encrypted locks, hidden speakers that can blast military screams or commands in Arabic, enough to make an intruder think they've stumbled into a black ops mission. A secret control room, with monitors and keyboards, lets me track everything, from a human shadow to a stray rabbit. I don't just restore vintage cars or test solar panels here, I built this place to keep me ready. The military taught me peace is fragile, and I never forget that lesson. Shadow, curled up by the heater, seems to agree, his eyes always watching, like he smells danger before I do. Willow Creek is a small town where farmers and newcomers from Willow Heights rub shoulders. There's a weekend farmers market, a cafe with the best brisket sandwiches in the county, and folks who wave at each other on the road. But Willow Heights brings city culture, the Homeowners Association, or HOA, with its dumb rules about house paint colors or flagpole heights. I don't care, because my land lies outside their boundaries. I checked the county records when I bought it. Clean, no HOA ties. I came here for quiet, not to be bothered. Trouble started a few weeks ago. A letter showed up in my mailbox, gold embossed with the Willow Heights HOA seal. The sender was Marissa Tate, HOA president, demanding I remove my American flagpole and barbed wire fence for failing to meet exterior standards. I nearly snorted coffee through my nose. My land isn't under the HOA, and that flagpole reminds me of days gone by. I double-checked the county records, just to be sure, no connection to Willow Heights. The letter ended with failure to address violations will result in stronger action. I smirked, thinking it was a dumb mistake, but Shadow lifted his head, ears perked, like he smelled trouble. I stuffed the letter in a drawer, planning to ignore it. But part of me, the part that once held an M24 in the dark, started calculating. I'd met people like Marissa before. They think retirement means weakness, that a guy on a big plot just raises horses and drinks coffee. They don't know I retired because I'd done enough damage, and I'm damn good at protecting what's mine. I just want peace, but if Marissa wants to play war, she'll find my workshop isn't an easy target. I looked at Shadow, who growled softly, like he was saying, "Let her try," and I knew, the game was on. Marissa Tate's first letter sat in my drawer, but I knew it wouldn't be the last. People like her, with flashy tracksuits and notebooks full of ambition, don't stop after one test shot. They're like recruits on the range, thinking they're generals until they meet someone who knows the game. I was right. A few days later, another letter arrived, still gold embossed, still stamped with the Willow Heights HOA seal, but this time sharper. Marissa demanded I remove, not just the flagpole but also my solar panels, calling them unapproved exterior structures. She attached grainy photos, taken from a distance, showing the flagpole panels and me, sitting on my porch chair, binoculars in hand, Shadow at my side. I smirked. Someone was watching me. I'm not the type to panic. The military taught me to observe first, act later. I checked the county records again. My land was still clean, no ties to Willow Heights, but this letter wasn't a mistake. It was a declaration of war, and Marissa Tate was clearly the type to stand on a hill, waving her flag, no matter who she faced. I tucked the letter in the drawer, with the first, then powered up the workshop monitors. Infrared cameras swept the property, showing nothing but a few rabbits darting through. Shadow lifted his head, ears perked, like he was asking, "What's next, boss?" I scratched his head, muttering, "Let her dig her own grave." Marissa didn't make me wait long. One afternoon, while I was wrenching on a vintage car engine in the workshop, a motion sensor pinged, a small but sharp beep. I switched to the control monitors, spotting 3 people near the south fence. Leading them was Marissa, in a teal tracksuit, oversized sunglasses, holding a phone recording video. Beside her were 2 guys in green polo shirts, one wearing a knee brace, looking like he was trying to seem tactical. They snapped photos of the flagpole, solar panels, and barbed wire fence, whispering to each other. I zoomed in, seeing Marissa point and gesture, lips pursed, like she was planning a land grab. Shadow growled softly, but I signaled him to stay. "Not yet, buddy," I said. I didn't rush out to confront them. Military habit told me let the enemy expose themselves first, but I didn't sit idle either. That night, I checked the fence, finding clear boot prints in the dirt, large cheap sneaker treads. I added more motion sensors along the south fence, set to alert if anything heavier than 20 kilos slipped through. My workshop was ready, but I wanted to know what Marissa was playing at. She wasn't just a nosy housewife flexing power. She had a motive, and I'd bet it wasn't just my flagpole being too tall. The next day, at the Willow Creek Cafe, I overheard whispers about Marissa. She was a former big-shot manager at some corporation, fired for overstepping, and now treated the HOA like her personal kingdom. An old farmer, chewing a sandwich, said Marissa once tried to make him repaint his barn, though he lived a mile from Willow Heights. I sipped my coffee, nodded, but in my head, I was sketching a map. Marissa wasn't just targeting me. She wanted to expand her empire, and my land was a juicy prize. I returned to the workshop, checked the cameras. A beige SUV, definitely Marissa's, was parked near the fence, lights off, engine running. I logged the license plate, saved it to a hard drive. Shadow lay beside me, eyes glinting like he was saying, "She's asking for trouble." I smirked, muttering, "She sure is, buddy. And we'll let her trip herself up." The game was on, and Marissa didn't know she'd picked the wrong opponent. Marissa Tate fired the first shot, but I'm not the type to react rashly. The military taught me the most dangerous enemy is the one you don't fully understand, and Marissa, with her teal tracksuit and polo shirt posse, was mapping herself out for me. The boot prints near the fence, the SUV parked sneakily, and a third letter, this one threatening legal action if I didn't remove the flagpole, told me she wasn't stopping. I tucked the letter in the drawer with the others, then sat in the workshop's control room. Shadow curled up beside me, ears perked like he was asking, "What now, boss?" I scratched his head, muttering, "We'll make her regret crossing the line." My workshop was already a fortress, but I decided to upgrade it into something even a special forces team would hesitate to breach. I contacted Ethan Cole, an old CIA buddy who taught me how to turn a shack into an impregnable base back in Afghanistan. Ethan now lives in Nevada, selling security gear to guys like me, retired but never truly disarmed. "What do you need, Jack?" he asked over the phone, voice as dry as ever. "Thermal cameras, pressure sensors, and something to take down a drone without shooting," I replied. Ethan chuckled. "HOA, huh? You sure pick your enemies." A few days later, a package arrived, disguised in a wooden crate, labeled as farm tools. Inside were thermal cameras that could spot a person from 300 meters, pressure sensors the size of coins, and a drone jammer Ethan called your favorite toy. I spent the day in the workshop, installing the new gear. Thermal cameras went up in hidden corners, scanning the entire property in the dark. Pressure sensors were buried under dirt along the fence, set to ping if anyone heavier than Shadow crossed. I rigged a simple trap, marbles scattered in the gravel near the workshop gate, they clinked distinctly if stepped on, a trick I learned from desert ambush nights. I tweaked the workshop speakers, adding a new audio clip, Arabic shouts mixed with military commands, enough to spook any intruder. The steel door was double-checked, its encrypted lock rekeyed. I set up open-source surveillance software on my computer, storing all footage on an encrypted drive. Shadow watched me work, occasionally growling like he had input. "What do you think, overkill?" I asked him. He tilted his head, like he was saying, "Keep going." The next day, while checking the fence, I found a new clue, a scrap of paper caught in a bush, scrawled with "Your flagpole is an insult." I smirked, pocketing it. Marissa was getting impatient, and that made her sloppy. I powered up the workshop monitors, checked the cameras. A cheap drone, the kind sold online, was hovering over my land, filming the solar panels. I grabbed Ethan's jammer, aimed it at the drone. It shuddered, wobbled, then crashed into the grass 50 meters from the workshop. I retrieved it, spotting a small label, property of Willow Heights HOA. Bingo! I popped the drone's memory card into my computer. The footage showed my workshop flagpole and me, checking the fence with Shadow. Marissa wasn't just threatening, she was building a dossier. I saved the footage to my drive, sent a copy to Ethan via encrypted channel. "She's serious," Ethan messaged back. "Be careful, Jack. People like her don't know when to quit." I nodded, though he couldn't see. I wasn't stopping, but I wasn't striking yet. Marissa needed to expose more, and I was happy to wait. I looked at Shadow, lying by the workshop door, eyes gleaming in the lamplight. "She thinks we're prey, buddy," I said, fingers tapping the keyboard. "But she forgot I've hunted far worse," Shadow growled, like he agreed. The workshop was ready, and so was I. Marissa wanted war, she'd find I never fight unprepared. Marissa Tate didn't disappoint. After the drone incident, I knew she wouldn't stick to gold-embossed letters or scrawled threats. People like her with oversized sunglasses and ambitions bigger than their skills, always push further when challenged. I'd prepped the workshop into a fortress, but Marissa seemed to think she could outmaneuver me with persistence and her polo shirt crew. I let her move freely, but every step was caught on my cameras, and Shadow, with his ears perked, always knew before I even checked the monitors. Just days after the drone, I got a fourth letter, this time not mailed but shoved directly into my mailbox. Inside was a printed sheet, bold text listing new violations. My flagpole disrupted visual harmony, solar panels were unapproved, and barbed wire fence threatened community safety. It ended with "Comply or we will be forced to act." I smirked, tucking it with the others. Marissa was trying to play the legal card, but my land wasn't under the HOA, and she knew it. This wasn't about rules, it was about power. That afternoon, while I was tweaking the solar system, a pressure sensor near the south fence pinged, a sharp beep like a knife cut. I rushed to the workshop, pulled up the control monitors. Cameras showed 3 people standing a few meters from the fence, led by a middle-aged guy in a green polo, wearing a knee brace, holding a sledgehammer. I zoomed in, recognizing him. Greg Vaughn, a failed cop wannabe, turned Marissa's lackey. The other 2, also in polos, carried orange plastic signs reading "Violation Notice." They ignored my private property sign, stabbed their signs into the dirt, then took selfies, grinning like they'd just claimed a hill. I kept Shadow still, fingers flying over the keyboard, saving the footage to my drive. Greg and his crew didn't stop there. They walked along the fence, yanking a section of barbed wire, leaving clear boot prints in the dust. I smirked, muttering to Shadow, "She's hired a bargain bin mercenary squad, buddy." Shadow growled, like he was saying, "Let me at him," but I signaled him to stay calm. I wanted more evidence, and Marissa was generously providing it. That night, I checked the fence, finding a cut wire in the solar system, not accidental, but sliced with sharp pliers. Power was out for a few hours, but I fixed it before midnight. I added more sensors around the area, set to ping if anyone touched the wires. Infrared cameras caught a figure leaving after the sabotage, wearing sneakers with neon laces. I saved the footage, sent a copy to Ethan Cole. "She's playing dirty," I messaged. Ethan replied instantly, "Watch your back, Jack, her kind don't know limits." The next day, at the Willow Creek Farmers Market, I sensed a shift. Some locals, who usually waved, now avoided my eyes. A woman selling vegetables whispered to her friend that I was an extremist, keeping attack dogs and guns in my workshop. I sipped my coffee, pretending not to hear, but my mind connected the dots. Marissa was spreading rumors, trying to isolate me. She wanted me angry, reckless, giving her an excuse to call the cops, but I'm not a rookie. I smiled at the vegetable lady, bought a bunch of kale, then headed back to the workshop. That afternoon, an older woman knocked on my gate. She introduced herself as Clara Bennett, a neighbor a few miles away, former NSA analyst. Clara brought a plate of apple pie and a USB drive. "You'll need this more than the pie," she said, eyes twinkling. The USB held emails and texts from Marissa, showing she misused HOA funds to hire Greg and buy drones. Clara had been tracking Marissa for months, waiting for someone tough enough to take her on. "She wants to expand her control," Clara said. "Your land is her big target." I plugged the USB into my computer, scanned the data. Marissa wasn't just after me, she was forging documents, trying to claim my land tied to a failed housing project from 2 decades ago. I looked at Shadow, lying by the workshop door, ears perked. "She thinks she's the hunter," I muttered. "But we're the ones setting the trap," Shadow growled, like he agreed. Marissa had just upped the game, and I was ready to play on. Clara Bennett's data was gold, but I knew Marissa Tate wasn't the type to sit still after being challenged. She was like a hungry wolf. Corner her, and she bites harder. With Clara's emails and texts, I had proof of Marissa's overreach, but I needed more, a knockout blow she couldn't dodge. I kept watching, letting the workshop do its job, and Shadow be my eyes and ears. I didn't have to wait long. Marissa, with her teal tracksuit and polo shirt crew, was ready to escalate, and this time, she went dirtier than I expected. One night, while I was working on a vintage car engine in the workshop, Shadow suddenly snapped up, ears perked, nose flaring. He growled, eyes locked on the back door. I killed the radio, feeling the air shift, a heavy stillness, like before a storm. I slid my hand over the keyboard, pulling up the control monitors. Infrared cameras scanned the property, nothing odd, but Shadow never misses. Then I heard it: gravel crunching, metal scraping wood, and a loud crash. Someone had smashed the workshop's back window. I moved fast, killing the lights, slipping into the shadows. Shadow stood beside me, hackles raised, but silent at my hand signal. I pulled up a secondary monitor, spotting 3 figures climbing through the broken window. Leading was Marissa, in her teal tracksuit, oversized sunglasses, despite the dark, gripping a baseball bat. Behind her was Greg Vaughn, sledgehammer on his shoulder, and Tyler Tate, her nephew, clutching a spray paint can, neon lace sneakers glowing in the infrared. "They didn't knock or call out," Marissa shouted, voice shrill. "This is a violation property. We're fixing it now." She swung the bat, shattering a solar panel. I didn't rush. I'd built the workshop for moments like this. I hit a key, triggering the security system. Floodlights blazed, pinning Marissa in their glare. Hidden ceiling speakers roared, blasting Arabic shouts mixed with military commands. "Stand still, drop your weapons." Tyler panicked, dropping the paint can, yelling, "What the hell is this?" Greg raised his sledgehammer, hands shaking. Marissa spun, shielding her eyes from the light, bat clattering to the floor. I hit a second key, and the main steel door locked with a cold clank. They were trapped. I watched from the hidden control room, pulse steady. Shadow stood beside me, fur bristled, but quiet. I activated a fake laser pointer, sending a red dot dancing across Marissa's chest. She froze, face pale, whispering, He's got a gun." I smirked, muttering to Shadow, "She thinks she's in a movie." I let them panic a few seconds longer, then stepped from the shadows, flashlight beam hitting Marissa's face. Shadow paced beside me, growling just enough to make Tyler stumble back, crashing into a tool rack. "Calm as a Sunday morning," I said, voice low. "You've got 3 seconds to explain why you broke into my home with weapons. Talk." Marissa shrieked, not scared, but like a kid whose toy was taken. "You're violating community rules. That flagpole insults the board. I have the right to fix it." She pointed at the shattered solar panel, face red. Greg stammered, We're just enforcing regulations." Tyler, trembling, mumbled, "I didn't want to do this." I didn't respond, just hit a button on my remote. A clank sounded as the secondary steel door locked, and red lights from the infrared cameras blinked. "You're being recorded," I said, voice cold. "Every second in high res, backed up on 3 drives. Sheriff Reed's on his way. You can keep yelling or sit and wait." Marissa lunged for the door, pounding the steel, screaming, "You have no right. This is community authority." She kicked the door, then turned, reaching for her bat, but Shadow's louder growl froze her. I leaned against the wall, flashlight still on her. Tyler slumped to the floor, head in hands. Greg dropped his sledgehammer, muttering, "I was just following orders." I smirked, looking at Marissa. "You thought you were the hunter, but you walked into my territory." Shadow tilted his head, almost mocking. Marissa opened her mouth to yell again, but the camera's red lights silenced her. 15 minutes later, Sheriff Lucas Reed's truck rolled into the yard. Lucas stepped out, surveyed the scene. Marissa splattered with Tyler's spray paint, Greg trembling, Tyler near tears, and sighed, like he knew his paperwork just doubled. He watched the footage on my tablet, shook his head. "Trespassing, vandalism, and possibly armed assault," he said, cuffing Marissa, gentle but firm. She screamed, "You'll regret this, Harlan." I smiled, voice low, "You're already regretting it." Lucas led them to his truck, then turned back to me. "We'll handle it at the station. Stay cool, Jack." I nodded, watching his taillights fade. Shadow settled down, ears relaxed, but I knew this wasn't over. Marissa lost a battle, but her kind don't quit easy. I returned to the workshop, checked the cameras. The monitors glowed, recording everything. "She'll be back," I muttered to Shadow. He growled, like he agreed. I tapped the keyboard, saving another copy of the footage. This fight wasn't done, but I was ready for the next move. Marissa Tate's break-in at my workshop was a spectacular failure for her, but I knew people like her don't quit after one loss. They're like weeds, pull them once, and they grow back tougher, meaner. With the HD footage and evidence from Clara, Sheriff Lucas Reed was building a case against Marissa, but I wasn't naive enough to think she'd stay quiet. Marissa had been humiliated, and people like her will do anything to reclaim power. Shadow, with his perked ears and sharp instincts, seemed to sense it too. I kept the workshop ready, cameras silently sweeping the property, waiting for her next move. 3 days after the break-in, I was checking the fence when I heard a buzz overhead. I looked up, spotting a drone, not the cheap kind from before, but a professional model with a bulging camera and blinking LEDs. It hovered over the workshop, tilting to film the solar panels and flagpole. Shadow growled, eyes tracking it like he wanted to leap and bite. I went to the workshop, grabbed Ethan Cole's jammer, and aimed at the drone. It shuddered, wobbled, then crashed into the grass 100 meters from the fence. I retrieved it, spotting a small label, property of Bright Star Security. Not the HOA, but a private security firm. I smirked, muttering to Shadow, "She's hired mercenaries, buddy." I pulled the drone's memory card, plugged it into my computer. The footage showed the workshop from every angle, the flagpole, and me patrolling with Shadow. There was even audio, Marissa's voice whispering over a radio, "Focus on the panels. We need proof he's violating." I saved the file, sent a copy to Clara. She called back instantly, voice sharp, "Bright Star's a front." I found invoices. Marissa paid them through HOA funds, disguised as maintenance services. I nodded, though Clara couldn't see. Marissa wasn't just desperate, she was reckless. The next morning, I found a note stuffed under my gate, handwritten, scrawled, "You'll pay for humiliating our leader." I pocketed it, checked the fence cameras. Footage showed a stranger, not Greg or Tyler, slipping the note and running off. Marissa was playing mind games, trying to rattle me. But I'd seen these tricks in Afghanistan, threat letters, rumors, anything to throw an opponent off. I didn't flinch. Instead I added cameras along the outer road, small ones disguised as birdhouses, and upped the data backup frequency. At the weekend farmers market, Marissa's rumors spread faster than I expected. An egg vendor glanced at me, muttering to a customer that I kept military weapons in my workshop. A mom pulled her kid away as I passed. I sipped my coffee, pretending not to hear, but my mind connected the dots. Marissa wanted to make me Willow Creek's enemy, a crazy loner she could justify targeting. I smiled at the egg lady, bought a dozen, and headed back to the workshop. Clara showed up that afternoon, carrying a new USB drive. "Marissa's trying to forge HOA meeting minutes," she said, opening her laptop. "She claims your land belongs to an old unexploited housing project, total fabrication, but she's filed a claim with the county." I scanned the documents, fake papers, forged signatures. Clara smirked. "I sent copies to a reporter, Megan Walsh. She loves these kinds of scandals." I nodded, feeling like I was loading a round into the chamber. To poke at Marissa, I decided to have some fun. I painted the workshop fence bright yellow, erected 3 more American flagpoles along the driveway, and lit up an LED sign by the gate, flashing "Private Property, No HOA." That afternoon, Marissa's SUV cruised by, slow window down. I saw her snapping photos, face pinched like she was about to explode. Shadow stood beside me, ears perked, like he was laughing. "She's fuming," I muttered. "Good, angry people make mistakes." I returned to the workshop, checked the cameras. The monitors glowed, recording everything. Marissa could send drones, hire mercenaries, or spread rumors, but she didn't know I was prepared for every scenario. Shadow lay beside me, eyes glinting in the lamplight. "She thinks she's running the game," I said. "But we're the ones moving the pieces." Shadow growled, like he agreed. I tapped the keyboard, saving more data. The board was tilting my way. Marissa Tate was losing her grip, and I could smell her desperation through her increasingly reckless moves. Professional drones, threat notes, and rumors rippling through Willow Creek. She was trying to paint me as a monster to shore up her power. But she didn't know every move was caught on my cameras, every mistake catalogued by Clara Bennett, and Sheriff Lucas Reed already had a thick file on her. My workshop, with its CIA-grade security, wasn't just a fortress, it was a trap, and Marissa had walked right in. Shadow, with his perked ears, seemed to sense victory nearing. But I didn't celebrate yet. People like Marissa always have one last swing. The day after the drone, Megan Walsh's article hit a local blog, bold headline, "Willow Heights HOA President Accused of Abusing Power, Hiring Security to Harass Resident." It laid out everything: Marissa funneling HOA funds to Bright Star Security, forging documents to claim my land, and hiring Greg Vaughn and Tyler Tate to vandalize my property. Megan had evidence: Clara's emails, footage from my workshop, and Tyler's dumb social media post. The article spread like wildfire. By noon it was on Facebook, Nextdoor, and Willow Creek's group chats. Locals were livid. One commenter wrote, "She thinks she's a queen." Another said, "Thank the guy who exposed her." I sat in the workshop, sipping coffee, reading the article on my computer. Shadow lay beside me, ears twitching like he had input. "She's shaking, buddy," I muttered. But it's not over. I was right. Marissa didn't collapse immediately. She fought back, but in the dumbest way. That afternoon, a new sign appeared on my gate, an orange placard with bold text, "UNEP proved livestock violation." I laughed, yanked it down, tossed it in the trash. Cameras caught 2 polo shirt guys planting it, one of them Greg, still in his knee brace, looking like he'd been dragged back to the battlefield. I sent the footage to Lucas Reed with a note, "She's learned nothing." Lucas called back, voice weary, "We're digging deeper into Bright Star. Marissa funneled thousands from HOA funds to them, disguised as park maintenance. She's not getting out of this." I nodded, though he couldn't see. "Is she under watch?" I asked. Lucas smirked over the phone. "She's not going anywhere, Jack, but don't take matters into your own hands. Let us handle it." I smiled. "Just watching the show, Lucas." Clara came by that evening, carrying another USB. Marissa just emailed the HOA board, demanding an emergency meeting to address the Harlan threat, she said, eyes twinkling. But 2 members quit after Megan's article. The board's falling apart. I scanned the emails. Marissa called me a military renegade, demanded the county seize my land. I smirked, saved the file. "She's shooting herself in the foot," I said. Clara nodded. I sent everything to Megan. "Another article's coming." I decided to needle Marissa one more time. I set up a new row of flagpoles along the fence, flying American and Arizona flags, and cranked the LED sign brighter, flashing private property, no HOA. The next morning, Marissa showed up, not in her SUV, but on foot, with a guy in a suit claiming to be a property assessor. She waved, fake smile, just checking boundaries, Mr. Harlan. Nothing personal. Shadow growled, hackles up. I stood at the gate, arms crossed, silent. The suit glanced at me, clearly uneasy, then backed off. Before Marissa could say more, Lucas Reed's truck rolled up. He stepped out, eyed her, voice low, Miss Tate, you were warned to stay away from this property. This is a criminal investigation. Marissa paled, stammering he's a threat. I'm the victim. Lucas glanced at me, then back at her. The only victim I see is the one you've been harassing, Miss Tate. Come with me, or I'll cuff you right here. The suit retreated, practically running to his car. Marissa stood there, face red, then stormed off, steps heavy. I watched her go, shadow beside me, ears relaxed. She's crumbling, I muttered. But I didn't let my guard down. Marissa had one last swing, and I was ready to catch it. The workshop, with its cameras and speakers, stood waiting. Marissa Tate was backed into a corner, and I knew people like her don't exit the stage without a final act. Megan Walsh's article, Clara's evidence, and pressure from Sheriff Lucas Reed, had shaken her self-proclaimed kingdom. The Willow Heights HOA board was dissolving, residents were furious, and Marissa lost lackeys like Greg Vaughn. But I wasn't surprised to hear she was still flailing. Shadow, with his perked ears, seemed to sense the end coming. I sat in the workshop, checking cameras, sipping coffee, waiting to see how Marissa would dig her hole deeper. Her final swing came at an emergency HOA meeting, held at the Willow Creek Community Center. Clara texted me, she's losing it. Someone's live streaming on Facebook. I opened my laptop, pulled up the stream. Marissa stood before a sparse crowd, in her teal tracksuit, hair frazzled, gripping a mic. She shrieked, voice shrill. We've been betrayed. Harlan's a military renegade, training dogs to attack civilians. The board's been bought by enemies of our community. She pointed at the few remaining members, calling them traitors. The crowd murmured, some shook their heads, a few laughed. An older woman stood, shouting, you vandalized his property. Marissa, sit down. The video spread fast. By evening it was on Reddit, spawning memes. One photoshopped Marissa's face onto a general, captioned, HOA campaign fails. Another showed Shadow chasing her SUV, labeled Willow Creek's real hero. I smirked, scratching Shadow's head. You're famous, buddy, I muttered. He tilted his head, like he was saying, she deserved it. But the video wasn't just funny, it was the final nail. Lucas called me right after. She made herself look unhinged in public, he said. We're using the video to request a psych eval. She's done. The next morning, Lucas came by the workshop, reporting Marissa was arrested for financial fraud, harassment, and attempted arson. Tyler, her nephew, took a plea deal, confessed to the fire, and left Willow Creek to live with his parents in another state. Marissa was under house arrest, permanently banned from HOA activities. She tried blaming stress, Lucas said, smirking. But with the evidence you and Clara provided, she's got no way out. I nodded, handing him a coffee. Thanks for handling it, Lucas, he grinned. Thanks for not handling it yourself, Jack. A few days later, a group of kids from Willow Creek showed up at my gate, holding a hand-carved wooden sign. They stood shyly, parents behind them eyeing me like I might shoo them off. I opened the gate, stepped down. The sign read, "Thank you for protecting our community, your silent friends." It had drawings of horses, an American flag, and Shadow in a superhero cape. I smiled, took the sign. Said, "Thanks, kids." The parents nodded, one saying, "We're sorry we stayed quiet so long." I nodded back, said nothing more, and brought the sign to the workshop. That evening, I hung the sign on the wall, next to the control monitors. Shadow lay at my feet, ears relaxed. I sipped coffee, looked at him. "We did it, buddy," I said. But it didn't feel like victory. I was tired of fighting someone like Marissa, tired of a system that let her run wild. I checked the cameras, saw the property quiet, moonlight glinting on the flagpole. Marissa was down, but I knew she wouldn't be the last. People like her always exist, and my workshop would always be ready. I tapped the keyboard, saved another data backup. Shadow growled softly, like he was saying, "Stay sharp." I nodded. "You're right, buddy, we're not resting yet." Marissa Tate was gone, and Willow Creek seemed to breathe easier. No more drones buzzing over my workshop, no more threat letters stuffed under the gate, no more garish orange violation signs on my fence. It was like someone flipped a switch, restoring the quiet I sought when I bought these 40 acres. Shadow sensed it before I did. He stopped prowling the gate every night, stopped perking his ears at distant sounds. Instead, he sprawled on the workshop porch, eyes half closed, ears relaxed, like he knew the battle was over. But me, with a sniper's habits, never fully let go. My workshop, with its CIA-grade security, stayed lit, and I still checked the cameras every night. The Willow Heights HOA issued a formal statement, promising a full overhaul. They hired an outside auditor, pledged new elections, and publicly apologized to residents for Marissa's inappropriate actions. Locals, silent when she ran rampant, now clamored for transparency, accountability, community unity. I smirked reading the news online. Typical. They only speak up when the ringleader's down. Sheriff Lucas Reed stopped by the workshop one afternoon, shook my hand, voice low. "Thanks for keeping cool, Jack. Not everyone could." I nodded, handed him a coffee. "Just did what needed doing, Lucas." He grinned, said nothing more. "No need for fanfare, we got each other." I settled back into my routine, tending horses, restoring vintage cars, tinkering with solar panels in the workshop, but Marissa left a small scar. Not because she was dangerous, I'd faced scarier, but because she reminded me peace isn't free. It's guarded by cameras, by shadow, by relentless vigilance. I hung the kids' carved sign on the workshop wall, next to the control monitors. The drawings of horses, the American flag, and Shadow in a superhero cape, made me smile every time I looked. It reminded me that, despite what Marissa did, some in Willow Creek understood what I fought for. Not power, not ego, but boundaries, safety, peace. One morning, I heard a knock at the gate. Cameras showed a group of kids, standing shyly with a box of homemade cookies. They stammered thanks for chasing the witch away. I laughed, took the cookies, told them to be careful playing near the fence. Their parents stood back, nodding gratefully. I didn't say much, just waved, then returned to the workshop. Shadow licked crumbs off the floor, ears twitching like he was in on the fun. "See that, buddy?" I muttered. "We've got allies." Then came a surprise. One afternoon, a moving truck parked at Marissa's old house, a few miles from my land. I checked the cameras, saw a woman step out, hair tied back, wearing a simple button-up. She brought a basket of waffles to my gate, knocked. "I'm Sophia Grant," she said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "Federal judge, just moved from DC looking for some quiet." She smiled, eyes sharp. "Read about your saga online. Figured living near you means no HOA nonsense." Shadow patted over, sniffed her leg, then lay down, tail wagging lightly. I smirked. "He rarely likes people that fast," I said. Sophia laughed. "I keep a 9mm in my safe, and a federal badge in my drawer. Maybe he knows." I invited her for coffee, and we talked like two people who'd seen enough drama to value silence. Sophia settled in fast, and Willow Creek started feeling like its old self, a small town, with a farmer's market, a cafe smelling of brisket sandwiches, and calm evenings. But I didn't forget Marissa. I kept every file, every video, every email. People like her always have allies, always wait for a chance. I stood outside the workshop one evening, watching a red desert sunset. Shadow lay beside me, ears twitching. "We won this time," I muttered. "But there'll be another." He growled softly, like he agreed. I returned to the workshop, checked the cameras. The monitors glowed, the property quiet. I tapped the keyboard, saved the data. Peace was mine, but I'd guard it with vigilance, with Shadow, with my fortress. The story of Jack Harlan and his battle with Marissa Tate in HOA. Karen broke into my workshop, didn't know it's rigged, like a CIA safe house. Reflects real social tensions in America today, especially conflicts over personal freedom, abuse of power in community organizations like HOAs, and the divide between rural and urban values. Jack, a former sniper living in isolation in Willow Creek, Arizona, represents Americans who cherish property rights and individual liberty, core values protected by the U.S. Constitution. Marissa, with her ambition to impose HOA rules on Jack's land despite lacking authority, mirrors the problem of overreach in community organizations, a common issue in many American neighborhoods, where HOAs are often criticized for excessive control, from house paint colors to fence heights. The break-in at Jack's workshop, secured with cutting-edge technology, and Marissa's downfall through Clara's evidence and local media, show the power of preparation, community, and leveraging technology to protect one's rights. The takeaway: in today's America, you must actively protect your rights by knowing the law, building a support network, and using technology smartly. Like Jack, check legal records like county deeds to ensure your property rights are secure. Stay calm amid threats or rumors, as Jack did when Marissa spread claims he was an extremist. Find trustworthy allies, like Clara, who provided critical evidence, because community can be a powerful force against overreach. Finally, use technology, like security cameras or social media, to document evidence and share the truth, as Megan Walsh's article did to expose Marissa. In a society where power is sometimes abused, preparation and patience, as Jack showed with his Fortress workshop, will help you defend what's yours without resorting to conflict. Live true to your values, but always be ready like Shadow, ears perked, eyes watching. Subscribe to the channel to catch more gripping stories like Jack Harlan's fight against Marissa Tate. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, where we'll dive into more unexpected fortresses and battles for freedom.